We begin with this breaking news. A court in Pakistan has handed a death sentence to the country's former president, Pervez Musharraf, who was found guilty of high treason for suspending the constitution in 2007. Musharraf ruled Pakistan with a heavy hand from 1999 to 2008 after leading a bloodless military coup against the civilian government. To avoid a challenge to his rule, he suspended the constitution, purged the judiciary. He's currently in self-exile in Dubai and was tried in absentia.
After slowing production of its most lucrative plane, Boeing is now hitting the brakes. The aircraft maker says it is temporarily halting production of its controversial 737 MAX aircraft. Following crashes in Indonesia and Ethiopia killing 346 people, the model was grounded worldwide. Now, with that flight ban set to last well into 2020, Boeing's rare freeze on production is expected to ripple across the global economy. The company says there will be no layoffs among the 12,000 workers at its Renton, Washington plant, but the decision could affect workers at the 600 companies that are part of the 737 MAX supply chain. The impact of the announcement is so great that Boeing's woes could expand the U.S. trade deficit with other nations.
Yes, so we're still waiting details on what this operation was that these soldiers were coming back from. But the important thing, obviously, is that this was an accident involving 2 helicopters with this death toll of 13 soldiers. That's a very high death toll for a single incident. But the French army has been steadily losing people in that region for the last 5 years, as part of this operation called Barkhane, which began in 2014. And until this particular incident, they had already lost 18 people. So now in one event, they've lost 13. That takes the total death toll, the total French military death toll, to 31.
Victims of a mass shooting in Toronto last year have launched a $150 million class action lawsuit against the U.S. gun manufacturer Smith & Wesson. 2 people were killed in the summer of 2018, 13 others injured when a gunman opened fire along a stretch of Danforth Avenue. That's right in the middle of the very popular Greektown region. He used a stolen handgun, and the lawsuit alleges that Smith & Wesson was negligent by not incorporating smart gun technology. That's a safety measure that prevents unauthorized users from firing the weapon.
That's right, Eve. Good morning. I'm outside a hospital just next to Gare du Nord in the northeast of Paris. And doctors and nurses are going on strike here today because they say French hospitals are on the brink of collapse, and that's putting patients' lives at risk. Now, over the weekend, over 660 doctors put their names to a letter in a newspaper warning the government that they would quit the health service altogether unless more money is poured in to the systems very quickly indeed. They remind us that since 2005, there have been €9 billion worth of cuts to French public hospitals. And that means that in institutions like this, there are fewer beds available. People have to wait longer in accidents and emergency to get seen by a doctor. And there are fewer operating theatres as well. Now, that's all put pressure on the staff of hospitals like this.
Police in India are facing criticism for a heavy-handed response to students protesting a new citizenship law. The Citizenship Amendment Act provides a pathway to Indian citizenship for religious minorities from neighbouring countries, with the exception of Muslims. Students at Delhi's Jamia Millia Islamia University, parts of which were ransacked by police, are among many across the country that have joined in protests against the law.
Images like these have sparked outrage in India. Baton-wielding police snatch a student. Their excess of force only stopped when confronted with incredible bravery. Part of what eyewitnesses say was a day of violence against students.
Well, Alison, we've heard from a few Taliban officials that this is news to them too, but they're not surprised. The U.S. negotiating team hasn't told their Taliban counterparts, and the Taliban's top brass were learning it from the media. So it's really just the latest in a long line of impetuous foreign policy decisions and announcements by this administration that's caught not only America's enemies off guard, but also its allies and even its own U.S. soldiers and diplomats who are out in the field. It's caught them all completely by surprise. And, there are lots of examples of what you could call whiplash diplomacy, but, maybe the most emblematic is President Trump's on-again, off-again negotiations between the U.S. government and the Taliban. But this time, the president appears to be announcing this massive withdrawal. It'd be about a third of U.S. soldiers who are currently in Afghanistan.
An increasing number of people have voiced support for the police in their handling of the city's months-long protests. A Sunday rally condemning violence drew more than 100,000 people. Many waved Chinese national flags and Hong Kong's regional flags at Tamar Park. The organizers said they did not believe the police have used excessive force and wanted to thank them. They said using violence to vent anger is not what Hong Kong people want, and many who were attacked by rioters also spoke out.
As talks are stalled between North Korea and the U.S. and tensions between the two are seemingly on the rise, Russia and China have reportedly asked the UN Security Council to ease sanctions on North Korea. But the U.S. is keeping its hardline stance, saying it's not yet time to consider sanctions relief.
Beijing and Moscow submitted a draft resolution to United Nations Security Council on Monday, calling for an easing of sanctions on North Korea. The two countries have been pushing for this since Pyongyang pledged to work toward denuclearization last year, but it is the first time they've actually taken action. The new draft proposes lifting the ban on exports of seafood and textiles, as well as North Koreans working abroad. North Koreans are currently banned from working overseas, and UN members have until next week to repatriate North Korean workers under a previous UN resolution.
The ongoing bushfire threat is coinciding with a dangerous heat wave, forcing the Rural Fire Service to declare an unprecedented emergency situation. From midnight tonight, a statewide total fire ban comes into effect for 4 straight days as temperatures soar into the mid-40s.
Surveying the damage from a backburn that backfired. 12 homes in total destroyed, most of them in Skyline Road in Mount Tomah. Today, the Premier visited the Hawkesbury RFS headquarters, which signed off on the weekend operation, which went wrong.
The team had done it tough with that backburn.
But there was no time to ponder the past.
Thursday's going to be really hot and windy, but it's westerly winds, so all this fire moving towards more populated areas,